There's one correction I have to make this morning. The sermon title is The Miracle of the Sacks, which is, in fact, going to be a sermon title sometime, but not this morning. So if you get downstairs, don't say, we didn't hear about the miracle, because you're not going to hear about the miracle this morning. But you'll hear about the miracle sometime. I hope you're not totally confused by this, but in some churches, they don't ask for the sermon title, and in this church, I think you're usually seeing it. And, it's hard to come up with a title sometimes, because you just don't want to say something that's, like the prodigal son. You want to get something that has a little zip to it, I can tell you're all excited about the learning about this, but at any rate. This is a story by Joan Chittister, who is a Roman Catholic sister religious and really a great writer, has written some wonderful material. You may have read some of it. If you hear Joan Chittister's name or see it on a book sometime, I urge you to pick it up and give it a reading. She writes some wonderful stuff. The Israeli Hasidic masters tell the story of a rabbi who disappeared every Sabbath Eve to commune with God in the forest, his congregation thought. So one Sabbath night, they deputized one of their cantors to follow the rabbi and observe the holy encounter. Deeper and deeper into the woods the rabbi went until he came to the small cottage of an old Gentile woman, sick to death and crippled into a painful posture. Once there, the rabbi cooked for her and carried her firewood and swept her floor. And then when the chores were finished, he returned immediately to his little house next to the synagogue. Back in the village, the people demanded of the one they'd sent to follow him, "Did our rabbi go up to heaven, as we thought?" "Oh no," the cantor answered after a thoughtful pause. "Our rabbi went much, much higher than that." Much, much higher than heaven. I wonder, do you think Jesus would use a phrase like that? Higher than heaven. Is this the picture, I wonder, of the kind of loving that God expects of us? Kind of a simple story, but also very powerful. Most of us, when we talk about loving, we understand it from somewhat of a perspective of our regular life, obviously. The loving we understand is the love we have for our children, the love we have for other people's children sometimes, for those of us who are teachers. I think about the way Alexandria is passed around on Sunday morning at coffee hour, this perfect baby. And Michaela and Michael are going to remember this someday. Whatever happened to that when you were perfect? Anyway. We don't want to scare you too much, Michaela. But don't get too many stories from Paula. She's sitting right next to you, and she's got a lot of stories she could tell you. Anyway, so we know what that loving is like. And in most cases, not all cases I know, but in most cases, we love our parents and our grandparents, and we think about them and care about them. And I can remember as a child loving to go and visit my grandmothers, and that was one of the big events in life. I love them very much. And we even love each other here in the building. Not every one of you with the same zeal loves the one next to you or the ones around you. I can understand that. Some of you love the pastor, and some of you think, well, he'll do until something else comes along. And there's a lot of different feelings, but generally we love each other, we care about one another, we're concerned about each other's welfare. But that isn't what Jesus was talking about. He was talking about something even beyond all of this, like higher than heaven. It's a way of loving that requires more of us. It challenges us to go higher, to look at a bigger picture than self or family or friends, because God calls us to be carriers of this teaching that Jesus gave us in all parts of the world. I know about a family, you hate to always have to have a bad example, but I think sometimes we need to think about this. Two different scenarios. One family, the mother is a doctor. They've got one daughter. The husband is a business person, quite a highly paid consultant in business circles. And he goes to the doctor because he isn't feeling well, and the diagnosis is he has Lou Gehrig's disease. Now, as you know, it's a progressive disease. It's very debilitating. It's not a very pleasant ending to life. So the wife and the husband talk this over, and she says, well, I think your best option is suicide. And because your life is going to be just terrible. And by the way, I'm leaving you. This has created, obviously, suffering beyond belief, but also with the daughter. The daughter who loves her dad and loves her mom now is thrown into this chaos. Now, maybe this woman is incapable of any better love. It's just like parents. You know, parents bring children into the world, and some people don't know what to do with those children. They can't understand them. They don't know how to love them. They don't know how to teach them. And as you know from other times I've talked to you, some parents actively hate their children. And so where is that love that God talks about for those children? Where is that going to come from? And then there is another scenario where one of the family members develops Parkinson's disease and Alzheimer's disease at the same time. Terrible problems. Very loving woman, a woman who was the life of the party kind of person, and a person with a great deal of concern for others. And the husband himself was very sick. But he ministers to this woman, his wife, who he loves, and recently, in her confusion, she left the house unknown to her husband. And she was found out in a field trying to sleep on the ground. And so her friends and even their own children said, this is it, Dad. You've got to let her go now into a nursing home because you can't deal with this anymore. It's killing you. And in fact, it probably is. And he said, no, I'm not ready yet. I can still love her here. I don't care what you think of that decision. It's the difference in a love that is completely committed. Not understanding it as sacrifice, but as understanding it as a commitment that he, with the last bit of strength he has, is going to hold on to. And that story and the first story are not told or meant for you and me to judge one another. It is just two ways of looking at the things about love that are present in life and sometimes come to us and challenge us. It seems to me that those times seem like going into that deep, dark forest, as in the rabbi story. Sometimes we walk into a very dark place in our life, into a fearful place. And we wonder what life is going to be, and can we manage this, and is it possible for us to accomplish the challenges that God gives us? And yet, God still sends the word, love one another, even in the darkness. And of course, it's easy to see the darkness in our society and in the cultures around us, and in fact, in most of the world. There's a wonderful story of a man who once stood before God, his heart breaking from the pain and injustice in the world. Dear God, he cried out, look at all the suffering, the anguish, the distress in your world. Why don't you send help? And God responded, I did send help. I sent you.